Welcome back to another ETS Profile. My name is Christine Richards and I'm the Research Director here at Zpryme. And we're excited to have Bill Meehan here with us from ESRI. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Hey, Christine, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Excellent. So I heard you were in the open mic session this morning.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you talked about.
Well, the idea was about what we call sometimes the utility death spiral. And the spiral goes something like this. You know, people put in solar panels and then the revenue goes down from the utility and then they have to raise their prices. And so if they raise their prices, more people are going to put solar, then they have to raise their prices and more people, you know. So that's kind of the death spiral. So theoretically, a thing could end up being that no one actually has electricity provided by the power company. But my message was, no, that's not going to happen because it's more complicated than that. And I use the idea of innovation. I mean, really what the utilities have to do is innovate. So one of my little gigs was I came in with a Sony Discman and I said, how many people have one of those? Of course, nobody has any of those anymore. And but what replaced the Sony Discman was what? The iPod, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you say, well, why, you know, what was better about the iPod? Well, it was smaller, you could put it in your pocket, it had a lot more songs on it, but more the fundamental thing was you didn't need a whole bunch of CDs. So I took a box of CDs and I dumped them on the floor. So just to go to the point. But the point though is iPod, you weren't replacing a device with another device. You were replacing a device with a platform, the iTunes platform. And what did that do? It basically blew up the music industry. So, you know, in terms of how you buy music, how you listen to music, and how you distribute music has been changed. So the notion is, okay, with that little backdrop, how do we avoid the kind of death spiral?
Yeah.
And one of the things you can make an argument, well, that solar systems, they become the kind of the platform threat to the utility industry. And so the idea would be, well, let's create a platform where it's very important, and not just to provide electricity, but to provide a platform of both information as well as the commodity. Like Amazon and Facebook. It's not just about, like Facebook is about storing pictures.
Yeah.
It's about connecting people to one another. So the notion of connection, the platform is one of connection. So as we think about the utility death spiral and what's going to prevent that, is really this idea of connection. And then I drew a parallel between the way the computer industry has kind of evolved, you know, the mainframes, and then people revolted against the mainframe and went to PCs, right? So I don't need the mainframes anymore, but then I needed to connect with one another. The internet came along and they were able to do that. So now we have the cloud, which is sort of a hybrid. And I use the same, that's really what's going to happen with the utility industry, right? So power plants are kind of like the mainframes, the PCs are like the solar systems, but then the cloud is like what's going to happen today. So people are going to be connected, pull things together. And I think the key is going to be the technology is going to allow it to happen. So it's not just about providing electricity, but providing information.
So what does that platform look like? I mean, you know, ESRI and all the spatial information and all that, how does that happen within utilities? How does that all come together?
Well, I think, you know, using the kind of the old notion of a GIS, it was like, well, we had maps, we made maps all the time, right? So let's use the GIS to make maps faster or better. But that's not the idea. It's the platform would be to have the GIS be participating in literally all parts of the business. I mean, think about it. Everything that a utility company does has something to do with location. So it's about, you know, where are my customers? What's their behavior? How can I connect with them? And what's around them? And you know, how do I pay my bill? And so everything is about the person is located here, the delivery system is located here, and the GIS will really help to pull all those pieces together. So it's not about making a map and printing it out and then sending it out to a bunch of people. It's about sort of engaging people. So the notion of a system of engagement, it's engaging people on their iPhones, on their iPods, or not iPods because we don't use iPods anymore, on their iPhone, on their iPads now, or their watches, or, you know, whatever that is. So that's kind of the idea of, so all of the technologies are going to participate in an overall platform. So going back to my analogy of the cloud and like an iPad, the iPads are really powerful. The cloud provides that level of scalability. And I think the GIS will simply help the utility people do what they need to do to remove the risk, to understand where people are going to put in solar or not, and how to provide all of that service. So technology is going to really figure that out.
So how do utilities get started with that? I mean, you're talking about, something that could be very disruptive for utilities, or, really not even doing things piecemeal. I mean, really going, with this platform. I mean, how do utilities begin that sort of path?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it kind of goes back to the idea that a utility can no longer think about incremental improvements to their business. So I don't really know the answer, but I do know that we have to change the way we do business today. So for example, the simple business model of charging people by the kilowatt hour may not be the right one anymore. And going back to this notion of the platform, it's about, and I quoted Phil Simon's book, The Age of the Platform. It's not about the commodity anymore, it's about the connection. So when we first have the internet, the value of the internet is the connections.
Yeah.
So we pay now to be connected. We don't pay for how many things that we get over the internet. So it's the same thing with the platform for the utility business. I think they have to recognize, and they do, I think, recognize the value of the connection, not just the value of the electricity. So they don't, right now they don't really charge, unless you're maybe a big customer, they don't really charge for connection.
Yeah.
But that's really where the value, that's where they need to monetize the value of the connection. So they need to change the regulatory structure. They have to go to the regulators and say, hey, this is our platform. So it's a platform of connection and information together, very much like the cloud does today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we've been talking about a lot at this event, is just that, these changes that have to happen, I mean, it's more than just within a utility company. It's the business model, the regulatory structure. I mean, all of those different things are going to be necessary to really enable this transformation.
And the other thing, of course, is utility industry, the utility business has been around for like over 125 years. And they have sort of practices that are like ancient rituals, as well as high tech. So it's sort of like they have a lot of high tech, SCADA and big data, and they're all buying Hadoop and all that. I mean, they're doing all this stuff, and yet at the same time, they have some very, very ancient ways of doing things. And I worked for the power company for many years, and I sort of stumbled upon many of those things, and we have to stop those. And I think that's where technology can really help, like the GIS. It's not about plotting out a map, sticking it on the wall, and then kind of gathering around the map. It's about like a web services and getting all of these services to people in the field and connecting with the people in the field. So it's all about connection again. So utility business, they don't even get, a lot of times the data coming from the field is not even posted to the source in months or sometimes even a year. So that means that the utility company isn't really running at its optimal pace. So think about this: if the revenue is going down with the whole solar thing, and the costs are going up, you gotta really optimize your costs. You can't operate the utility company like you had before, because the costs are just going to go away. Now that still means you have to create a change in the regulatory structure and all that sort of stuff. But even if you change the regulatory structure and you still kind of ran it like you used to run it, then you're still not going to succeed. So you got to do a bunch of different things.
Well, it's exciting.
But the notion of a platform is really interesting in that that means I always like to use things that people remember. So it's 3 Ps. First of all, the value of the platform is the physical thing, because luckily we already have connections to the customers. So those are there, the wires. And the second one is really about being partner with the customers in a much more dynamic way. Buying and selling, having the customer be a supplier necessarily, and then platform. So the 3 Ps together really, I think, define what the new paradigm of the utility is going to be.
Excellent. Those are great suggestions. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, and have a great rest of the conference.
Thank you.